Hey everybody, welcome back to the Headway Podcast. I'm Rachel, your host, and joining me is host Shane.
In our last episode, we took a deep dive into the fascinating world of the brain and brain injury. Today, we're shifting our focus onto another crucial aspect of life after a brain injury: living with changes in your attention and concentration.
The ability to focus and concentrate is integral to our daily lives, influencing everything from work to personal relationships. For those who have experienced a brain injury, these changes can pose unique challenges. Before we explore these challenges, let's introduce our incredible guests for today. Each one brings a unique perspective to this vital discussion.
Hey guys, I'm Peter Kavanagh. I'm from Wicklow Town. I sustained my brain injury 17 and a half years ago now, which is kind of crazy. I was 14 at the time, and I was walking home with my friends. This group jumped on my friend and they were punching him, and then one guy hit me with the mobile phone. Because of that, I got my brain injury. So when they brought me to Vincent's and identified the bleed in my brain, and then brought me to Beaumont, and they evacuated between my skull and my brain. I had lost all my movement on my right side, lost all my speech. My peripheral vision on my right side and both my eyes had gone. My short-term memory had been affected and a few other things. I was there for a month in Beaumont and I got a slight movement on my right side. The first movement was moving my right hand, and then everything kind of started from there. And then I was in the National Rehabilitation Hospital for 9 months after that. And there, most of my physical recovery took place. I went in there, I wasn't able to walk, really talk or anything, and then when I was leaving, I was able to walk. I had a bit of a limp, but my speech had gone back, so that was incredible. But the thing that took the longest was the mental side of it, and that took way longer to heal.
Hi, I'm Linda. I had a brain hemorrhage 2.5 years ago, and it was as a result of sea swimming. So one morning I went off with my neighbour at 6:30 in the morning. I went into the sea. Noted an amazing headache, which I just attributed to actually just cold water.
My name is Hazel, and over 5 years ago now, I was exceptionally stressed and life was a bit chaotic, and work was, as far as I was concerned, the only thing that I could control. So I made a very conscious effort to fling myself into work, and in doing so, completely wasn't minding myself whatsoever. And a few months after just being going, I was with work, travelling, and I collapsed after checking into a hotel and woke up the following week in Beaumont Hospital, having sustained a extradural hematoma and had brain surgery as a result. At the time, when I came out of Beaumont, I thought everything was fine. Didn't look great, but outside of that, I was fine. And I kept that on for about a year or so. I would continuously be telling work that I was coming back. But another year went by then where reality was beginning to strike a bit, that things just were not the same. But as far as I was concerned, I was going back to work. So it turns out 5 years later that I bypassed an awful lot of my recovery in relation to actually managing and coping, and probably above all just realising and acknowledging difficulties that had become very evident to a lot of people. Just I was refusing to take note of any of them. So I returned back to work just prior to lockdown, and at that point I got back in contact with Headway in relation to challenges that were completely unsurmountable at the time. And I haven't looked back, but I am very much still at the stage of acknowledging and managing from there.
Hi, my name's Peter. About 5.5 years ago, I had an accident and fractured my skull in 4 places. Shattered my right eye socket, and I had bruising and bleeds on both sides of my frontal lobe and another one in my temporal lobe on the right side.
Now let's hand it over to our guests to share their insights into navigating the complexities of attention and concentration after a brain injury.
Our first topic today is education with Peter K.
Yeah, when I first got my brain, after I recovered and I went back to school, I was still recovering at the time. I was still in the NRH and I was doing like a class, but I really realised quickly that my attention and my concentration was completely different. Like before a brain injury, I used to be kind of quite a good student. I used to enjoy school generally, but then I was able to keep on top of stuff, and now I was just struggling. I wasn't able to concentrate or listen, be able to take in what the teacher was saying, or able to, if the teacher told us to write something down, I wouldn't be able to write it down while she's speaking it to me, because I couldn't process the information in my head and then put it down on paper before I forgot it. So it was a real struggle for me for the rest of secondary school, basically. I got a resource teacher and a special needs, but it never kind of helped. And even trying to use kind of special technology to kind of do, I didn't really kind of use it, because maybe because I was a teenager and I didn't want it. I didn't need help or whatever, you know. So yeah, that I lost a lot of my confidence because of that as well. Because before, I thought school. I enjoyed school, and then now it was like I was completely different. And I think that's what the brain injury was all about. Was kind of you realize how different you are compared to pre-brain injury. And I kind of always tried to be the Peter I was, but it took 8 years to accept that I wasn't that person again. And then at the same time with education, then the confidence, I lost the confidence with my friends as well, because I wasn't socializing as much, and it was all back at the confidence. And so I did kind of socialize with my friends, and I kind of isolated myself more and more through school. And then the worst was like kind of Christmas of fifth year, where we had our Christmas exams, and there was no bad pressure on me or anything, but I decided not even go into the exams because I was just so struggling and I wasn't enjoying school, and I didn't really know where I was at the time. It was a really tough point in my life. And then the following year I did the Leaving Cert, and I only got like 200 points. It was nothing, but when I hit college it was kind of a total game changer for me, because I only did a PLC in Bray initially and in adult care, but I realized kind of talking about something that I was interested in, which was animals, and I loved animals. I found I was able to focus more, and I was able to actually take in information and really enjoy it. I think that was the key to actually learning about something that I was actually interested in. From then on, like doing those PLC courses, I was actually one of the top students again in my year, finally, after years of like struggling and thinking I wouldn't be able to achieve anything. So, and then I did a few PLC courses for a few years, and then I decided to do a PLC course in psychology, which was a complete game changer for me, and I found psychology was even a bigger interest for me. And that was kind of back to the counselling I got when I was recovering initially, what I thought was fascinating, just talking to someone, how helpful it is just to talk about it. And so I did a PLC course there, and I dived straight into an honours degree in psychology, which I finished in 2020, it was a challenging, because I suppose I was in my late 20s, had all my own house, I had a wife, and I had a busy life. I was still able to keep on top of the work, and it was all because of having general interest in the area, because I was more interested in it. And over the time as well, I kind of learned how to cope with my attention difficulties, and being able to I also was about like asking for help. So like in college, I'd ask for extra time for exams or any help that they kind of help. I'd go for it and take it.
No, fair play to you going to putting yourself through all that too.
Yeah.
It's brilliant though that you found psychology.
Yeah.
Something that it wasn't just like you wanted to put your focus on.
Yes. And I got like into 2020, or in my final year of my degree course, which was not the best timing, I got married to my wife in Christmas of that year, so in the middle of my final year. And then it was October before we got married, we found out we were having our first baby as well, which was kind of crazy as well. So I did the triple, as I said at the time. I got married, I got my honours degree, I got 2-1 in honours degree, which I was very proud of myself. And then the baby came along in June, so now I'm a dad, which is like the most amazing experience.
Quite an achievement.
Yeah. In 1 year.
In 1 year, like.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. So it was a crazy year, but I'm very proud of myself. So yeah, so just for free, going back to the attention and all, if there's help out there to support you and help in any way, just go for it. Because when I was a teenager, I was like, no, I don't need help, I'm fine, and all that, being all rebellious and all. But just take that if you get an extra 10 minutes for exams, do it. Because I was always doing exams. Even in my degree, I would always be the last one doing exams, and I didn't care about it anymore. I was like, yeah, it might take a bit longer, but I'm still able to get there. And even getting to my degree, like all my friends had probably gotten degrees before it, but I still got there. I got the degree, and it may took me a bit longer, but I got there. So if there's anyone listening that's doing Leaving Cert or anything that's struggling because of brain injury especially, just know when you get to college, it's just a game changer, because you don't have to learn subjects that you're not interested in. I didn't like languages at all. I struggled with them even before my brain, but particularly after. And even my research teacher and all, they always told me, and my mother and my parents were trying to tell me, do the easy subjects, business and all stuff. But I never wanted that, because I still had the interest with sciences and all that, and my maths and all that stuff I loved. I still loved that, and I was kind of I'd said, no, I'm still going to do them. At the time I did, and I prepared myself, and it was harder, but instead of doing something you don't, just go for something that you love, and it will make everything much easier, so. And I really found that, because doing adult care initially, I loved adult care, but then doing psychology and all those, and going into PLC course and then degree, and finding all this stuff so interesting, and just opening your eyes to everything. So just know if if you're really concerned that you're struggling, just know, do a PLC course. There's no mad pressure that you don't need 600 points or anything. Just do a PLC course. See if you do a few PLC courses in your early 20s. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Try see what you like, and then go from there. Because then when you're a mature student, then it's much easier to get into a degree course. So just do what you're interested in and go from there, because it makes it so much easier. And that's what I'd say. That's what I think.
I think that could be said for anyone, brain injury or not.
Yeah.
Like, just the curriculum just does not. It gave me like a huge new appreciation for just how the Leaving Cert just was not for me.
Oh yeah.
At all. And then I'd be doing my degree and my master's, and nothing, like none of the Leaving Cert curriculum had anything to do with any of what I was doing. And I was like, and I loved it so much. Yeah. So I excelled in it.
Yeah.
But without brain injury, obviously with it as well, though, just to be aware of the fact that there are so many options.
Yeah.
That a lot of people will end up down them anyway.
Yeah.
And even like people going straight into stuff that they're just not for them.
Yeah, and like, even if you don't have a brain injury, if you're getting married, having a baby and doing a degree, that's a struggle. Like, I can imagine anyone, like, I'm not just being boasting myself, but like, so yeah, you can I always say, if you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything, even with a brain injury.
Yeah.
So
Just to reiterate that, it's lovely to hear that, Peter, that if you put your mind to something, anything can be achieved.
Yeah.
And sometimes slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you also, after your 2 PLCs, you knew what you wanted.
Yeah.
People don't.
Yeah.
They want, but you did.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
One question. Did you have any help with your recovery after the brain injury as you were going through all of that? Or were you trying to make your way through it with no guidance, no help?
I got a good bit of support. My mother is a nurse, so she kind of had contacts and all. So after the National Rehabilitation Hospital, I was there for 9 months, and then I had some speech therapy in my local hospital centre in Wicklow Town. That helped. I was there for a year or two, and then I did some counselling. So I was there for a few years. But that was very beneficial, because again, the mental side of all the trauma took way longer to heal. I suppose you can always you probably relate to that.
Absolutely.
Especially being assaulted because of it and all, like not feeling safe in your own home and then all the changes that you've had. But so I did have good support there, and then I got some physiotherapy as well throughout the years for my limp and improving that. And then I do assessments for see if throughout the years after my brain, I did assessments to see if my vision got better or all that stuff. They were exhausting, but you've probably done assessments as well to see how capable you are and how well you've recovered or whatever. But I had a good bit of support, but I do think still the mental side should be more supports there.
Yeah.
As you were saying, for being aware of Headway and all, I don't know if it was a very aware, did they tell you about that when you were in hospital? Because it was 2006 for me, so it was more my mother who was kind of managing all that stuff, and my dad, because I was only 14 at the time. But yeah, I think I was fortunate enough with the amount of support I got, I suppose, because I was probably a child. It's probably different when you were...
Concentration, retention, just clarity of thought after a brain injury is difficult for nearly everyone.
Yeah.
It's a difficult time as is.
It's a huge amount to go through.
Yeah.
And trying to manage all of that stuff going on in your head at the same, or not going on in your head at the same time. It's fair play to you.
Like my mom said, I used to act like I was immature when I was recovering, which is fair enough. I used to hate that when you used to say that. But at the same time, I think I grew up quicker than everyone as well, because I kind of had to realize, whoa, this is what's happened to my life, and kind of have to figure that out. So it's kind of both ways. So you kind of lose your innocence to a degree. But it was a long few years, secondary school, so that was the roughest time. I always try to look back at look what I've achieved, because you put yourself I still have days where I'm oh, I wish I didn't have a brain injury, but then you always have to look back and look at your life, look what you've still achieved even with it, so.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
Our second topic today is coping strategies with Linda.
Hi, I suppose one of the things that I realised, and it took me a long time after the hemorrhage, was that I wasn't the person that I was before the incident. And that took a long time for that reality to hit home. So very quickly I had to say to my family, what are you asking me? And I would say, just say it again in a different way. And they did. They managed that, particularly the children. I think I might have overplayed my hand on that a little bit and took advantage, but it gave me thinking time when somebody put me up against the wall to ask something and say, come again. And so it took a while to realise that maybe the old computer inside my head wasn't working the way it should have worked. But then once you get clever, you can start to realise, okay, my memory is shot. I have to go upstairs now 3 times, and I've come back down the 3rd time, and I don't know what I went up in the first place. So there's a huge feeling of frustration. And then you can't say it's okay. You've got to forgive yourself, say it's okay. But some tactics that I used is that I'd have a bag in the hall. So if there was a bag that needed to be returned out of the bag, and I'd put the stuff into that, and I'd leave stuff into the car maybe the night before, so that I wouldn't end up returning something without actually having either the receipt or the bag. So those kind of little tricks work well. So the bag in the hall is always there. My phone, I'm not sure what I would do without my phone. If I have a meeting, there is a sense that I've lost my sense of timing. Sometimes 10 minutes feels like 2 hours, and sometimes 2 hours feels like 10 minutes. So if I'm planning to go somewhere, I have to give myself an extra half an hour to get there. So those things, so I put on the phone, the clock on my phone, and I'd work around that. Also checklists. For the first couple of months, I would stick some paper onto the counter and write out a list of tasks. And then I'd focus on the ones that were priority for the day, because sometimes I can write about 20 or 30 things I would never have achieved even before I had the hemorrhage. So that checklist and the priority list. And then I suppose it took me a long time to ask for help. And that would be help with physical things like changing bed sheets and those kind of things. And I got some help from that. And also I kind of looked at things like my standards, and I let them slip a little bit and say, it really doesn't matter, things we won't die in the house. I suppose some things that I did let slide that I regret, and that would be when I started to cook and bake, things would either flatten out because I hadn't used the right ingredients, or I'd burn something. But I was always a good burner of cooking, so I can't blame it for that. But maybe I surrendered a little bit and allow other people, whereas I'm trying to get that place as cooking my house back again. So those kind of things. And then another thing that I learned is not to allow myself to be fussed. And I would so I created some boundaries around it and say, just tell me all that again, and can you not ask somebody else? So that was key, not to allow myself to be fussed. And I'm not great at that, because I was always very much a multitasker, and I always tried to do way too much in a short period of time. So I realised that one thing at a time. And similar to what other people are saying, it's just not to take on too many tasks at a time. And I suppose I always would have an element of starting a job and not finishing it. And that would have been true all through my life. Whereas nowadays I have to say, stay here, stay. You're not moving on to the next task until you finish this one. Boring as emptying the dishwasher is, do it and then move to the next task. Like I said, let things go as well. If standards, it doesn't really matter if things aren't the way you'd like them to be, you can pick up tomorrow. Then with friends, it wasn't always possible to keep up with them. So if there was a lot of events and things like that, I'd cherry pick the ones that I could go on. And I didn't put myself in a position where I wasn't, I would get very tired. In the beginning, the first couple of months, I was very, very tired. I would sleep a lot. So I just withdrew from those activities that required maybe a lot more energy. And it works, you can just cherry pick the ones that you can deal with and check in and check out. But that requires an element of bravery as well, because you're not really going with the flow. Seeing things through, that's an important thing to do, and just finish one task before you start something else. Some of those have seen me out, and I'm gradually getting my confidence back. Headway have helped me with that. It gets me out of the house, and it's really important. If your mental health is suffering in any way, or if you do question yourself, get out of the house and have a walk and get some fresh air and come back and restart all over again. And the bad day, just put it behind you and start again the next day with a good day. And look at your achievements and look how far I've come. And I do reflect a lot and look back, and sometimes I would just ask somebody close to me what they think in comparison to where I was 2 years ago. And sometimes just give yourself a clap on the back.
And can I actually just ask you, just in relation to when you were saying about going up and downstairs 3 times and not knowing, how do you receive it when you say it out loud about how you've forgotten why you're in a room or whatever, and people go, Ash, we all have them moments?
Yeah.
Does that impact you at all? Or because I find sometimes people are just like, oh, don't we all have that? And I'm like, well, possibly, but I have it for a distinct reason, or do I? I go into the whole questioning mode then as well.
It's so true, because when people are, when I would slip up and I go back up the stairs, sweating, coming down for the third time, people would say, oh, we're all at that. It's the age group and whatever. So then people start to compare, and I'm kind of going, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
This is different. I understand what you're saying, but this is different. And to win the argument, I'll say, so you when people will say, oh no, I have that and I have that, I'd say, yeah, well then just throw menopause into the argument as well. And that shuts them up very quickly. But there is a sense of frustration that this is a little bit more than just the absences of concentration. There's something behind this as well. And maybe help me out. Maybe go upstairs and get my phone or try and find it. Yeah. Phone's missing. I ring myself about 5 times a day, and I don't apologise for it anymore.
I always use my phone. I have hundreds of reminders and alarms going off. I've used it since day one of my brain injury. I use it. So
I nearly had a breakdown the other day. I got one of them emails to say that my cloud was nearly full. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with Gerald? It's like, that's everything.
It's the biggest help though for trying to remember.
I think it's something everybody kind of has to cope with to some extent. Yeah. And I can identify with going up and down the stairs 3 times. What am I up here for? And either you make something up or you just pack it up and walk away. And when you get back down, say, oh, I forgot. I need to go back up. It's
frustrating.
It is. It's frustrating and it's annoying, and it's...
The only good thing is probably you get your steps in.
Exactly.
And it takes time. It does take time to kind of get to the point where, well, if I can't remember, it wasn't that important.
Next up, we have Hazel sharing her personal experiences.
So we were talking there just around focus and memory a lot. And they're two things that I suppose have become most evident to me over the last couple of years. I think with COVID, probably a lot of people were in the same boat in some regards, in terms of not knowing what day of the week it was or what time of the year it was, or who they had talked to, and whether it was last week or a month ago or only 2 days ago. But it was something that as time went on, I suppose, and particularly when I returned to work, I started noticing that even that structure still wasn't really helping me identify what exact day it was and what I was doing, and not getting kind of directed elsewhere. And I was saying to you before we came in about how, in terms of conversations, I frequently will go off topic altogether. And I am a talker, and I'm a really quick talker as well. So I have a tendency to answer a question by answering everything not related to that question, and then stopping and looking at the person, and they are looking completely blankly at me. I'm like, it was probably a yes or no question that they asked me there. And it did impact me a lot in terms of just socialising, really. When it comes down to it, that is where you're trying to grow most after the head injury. Anyway, for me, it was, I kind of beelined into vocational and then realised, actually, I'm losing a lot here, because I am a social person. But it meant that anytime I met anybody, I would talk a lot, and I do a post-mortem, and that was part of me anyway after meeting somebody. It's just a confidence thing about everything that I did wrong and everything that I said that I shouldn't have said. And that was prior head injury. So after it, that became an absolute disaster. It was so destroying when I would actually, because all I'd remember is everything that I talked about. And I filled every single gap with just words, and immediately going, it would just come across really self-absorbed. And so I stopped. I kind of nearly automatically thought of all of the things that I forgot, which I then would remember. I would very much question myself continuously based on this thing of, if somebody asks a question, they require an answer. They don't require you to just go off on a rant and a rave for 5-10 minutes, and then look at them a bit blankly while they look blankly back at you. And God, it was just one of them things, and it really impacts your memory as well then, because you don't remember what you said, but you remember that a topic came up. And so I suppose it was just that type of thing. And my professional background as well does require me to maintain focus. It's in teaching. It was all the kind of strategies that I had to put in place around that, and I'm still learning them day by day, and I will still lose my focus every now and then, or a lot. It's just little things, I suppose, that, if somebody asks you a question, try first and foremost to answer that, and then if you want to go off and ramble elsewhere, go for it. We just get the answer in and then ramble. And it's just one of the things. But also, and Linda, you were talking about it there, about just focusing on getting one thing done and then moving on to the next one. And that is something that I really have to get my head around, because I don't even know if I was a successful multitasker before, because when you know it, not getting perfectionism with it as well, you're just when you're running and losing the battle, But I do have to just gradually reassure myself continuously, well, you get that bit done. You know, like, you got up and you got out, you got active, that's your job done for today. Now what else can you do? Like, kind of in terms of that sort of way. So that's really, if somebody was to say, what's your main focus? When I get up in the morning, it's get up and get out. And it's not like I'm running out the door, like, but just have something to do. And then after that, it's a win-win. Is what I try and tell myself. It's obviously not always the case, but yeah, I think probably from the focus side of things, when you're a bit of a chatterbox as well, it can impact you quite significantly, because it does mean you miss points as well. Like, you do miss important bits, and yeah, just talking gibberish to people, really. I just sometimes find like it is verbal diarrhea, and I'm just like, okay.
I can resonate with so many things that you've said there, Hazel, and particularly it was going back out socially. Initially, the first night, I'll never forget it, and I was with a group of friends that protected and minded me. They really minded me, but I sat there like imposter syndrome, thinking I don't belong to this group anymore. And, you know, and not having, I would always have had a glass or two of wine, maybe to get me over social phobia, and that wasn't, I couldn't rely on that anymore. And so I cut people back, and I would do maybe 1-to-1s or 2-to-1s, but once I went home, I would do exactly as you did, Hazel, and I'd be thinking, I never asked them about their kids, I never asked them about their parents, and I'd end up sending a text afterwards to say, I never do this, you know, apologising for myself almost, even after the event. We might have had a lovely night, but I would self-doubt, and then another thing would do, I wouldn't double guess myself, I would triple guess myself, I would quadruple guess myself all the time. So, you know, things that maybe wouldn't have bothered me before, I would eat myself up with anxiety, you know, and until you get through to the next round, and then that's where you need to go for your walk and recalibrate.
Yeah, it's funny though, because I think sometimes you go out and you portray yourself like, okay, I don't have a head injury, like there's no brain injury here, and then you kind of come away and you're wondering to yourself, was that actually beneficial for me now? Because I'm pretending like everything's fine, which means that they're receiving me as completely fine. And you come home and you're like, oh, well, they'd have understood that if they knew, or they'd have known this, but I'm portraying a person who doesn't have a brain injury. And so I suppose in many ways you're kind of debilitating yourself by putting that person forward, instead of just going, I might forget that. And it might be related to the injury. It might not be, you might just forget. It wasn't that important. But I suppose it's just that thing of, sometimes I do wonder, I don't want to pull on, because sometimes it's not brain injury related. Sometimes you're just forgetting something, like everybody does. You have other things on your mind. Yeah. But I think, yeah, it's just that thing of, when do you become the person with the brain injury, and when does it serve you for people to know, and when does it serve you to just be yourself as well as you are now, and hope for the best. But I do sometimes wonder in terms of, well, people won't get this because they don't understand, but I'm not opening up either.
I agree with you fully. One of the problems with a brain injury in most cases is it's invisible. We met for the first time a few minutes ago because we're here for a podcast to talk about brain injuries. Yeah. Other than that, you wouldn't know. Yeah. Or somebody who's never had a brain injury could walk in, meet the four of us, and would have no idea that any one of us had a brain injury.
Yeah.
You can't see it. There's nothing there. So if you're trying to, as you're recovering, trying to sort of get through the recovery without showing any signs of a brain injury, you're putting more pressure on yourself. Where it's I've discovered since I had mine, it's much easier just to say it now. Yeah. Look, I have a brain injury. If I forget to ask you something, I do that. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's all just acceptance.
I was going to say, it's coming down to acceptance.
Like, even I said like years ago, yeah, I've accepted my brain, and I think I have to a degree. But even like last week, I was collecting my toddler from preschool, and his teacher told me one of his teddies that he brought in had gone pizza on or something, so it was in the washing machine. But when she told me that, I couldn't, because she was trying to, my thing is, she was trying to spell out the words so Frankie didn't know what she was talking about, because he would have been upset about it. So she said it was a seal or something. She's Essie, and that is a specific thing for me that I can't, when someone says spell something out, I can't remember all those letters. So whenever they say, I'm like, oh, sorry, say it again. But what I should have said was like, listen, I have a brain injury, could you just spell it slower for me? But I didn't. I was like, oh yeah, that's grand. So I just kind of blew it up. But like, in those cases, I need to try to remember it. But it's just so hard, because you don't want to be like come across like you're weird or something. You know, you the whole battle where you're like, I want to accept my brain injury, but I don't want people to treat me differently, you know, treat me like I'm a weirdo, you know. But like in the same way, she probably wouldn't find it. She would be like, oh, that's fine, you know, because in the CP, it's this compassion therapy group that I'm in now. One of the girls anyway on the WhatsApp, she was saying a few weeks ago she dropped all her shopping, which was leaving Tesco, and she just said, listen, I have a brain injury because someone helped me, and then some people helped her and brought her stuff to the car. So like it's that easy, just and if you are just honest about it, people will help you, you know. So I think it's always acceptance. It'll be a process for me for the rest of my life, just always having to remember, you need to just accept it. You're not.
Yeah, and the one thing you do have to remember is nobody can see it.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't know.
Yeah.
Unless you tell them.
Yeah.
I know one of my friends once said to me, the people who matter won't mind, and the people who mind won't. Or sorry, the people who matter won't mind, and the people who mind won't matter.
Won't be.
Absolutely.
They don't.
You're bang on.
Another word.
Yeah.
And one other point, fair play to both Hazel and Linda, getting into discussions about multitasking and trying to remember. On the bright side, as a man,
it's hard for us, I know, to do one thing, I know.
we don't do multitasking.
No.
It's one job,
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Now, what's next?
Yeah.
Don't give me 3 or 4 of them because 2 or 3 of them won't get done.
Yeah. It's the same post my brain. It's been like, I always like to do something and finish it and then move on to the next thing. I have a very rigid kind of mind. I don't know if you kind of have where you kind of like everything needs to be scheduled, and I don't like kind of chaos, you know.
I'd be a bit the same.
Yeah. So,
for sure.
And our final topic today is identifying changes with Peter M.
Hi, me again. Changes, what are they? There's actually probably a lot more than you might think. The first change I came across was they had to teach me how to drink again. While I was in Beaumont, I don't actually remember any of this, thankfully. My family told me about it afterwards. But as I was trying to drink water, I was breathing. And all I managed to achieve was filling up my lungs with water, or any liquid that you were trying to drink. So they put me on, it was like thick water. It was almost like drinking paste. I can still remember it. And it never occurred to me to ask, why am I drinking this? I just did, and eventually got the hang of being able to drink again without drowning myself. Because of the brain injury while I was still in hospital, and then after when I got out, I couldn't think. My thoughts were completely scrambled. I couldn't concentrate. I had no empathy or compassion for anyone or anything. I had no emotional stability. Impulse reactions were completely uncontrolled and unpredictable. And my short-term memory was gone. Couldn't remember things, people, names, nothing. Ability to schedule anything was gone. I'd become completely self-focused, and I was tired all the time. Absolutely shattered. But I couldn't see any of this. I thought I was fine. I'm able to walk. I can go into the kitchen, get myself a drink. I can drink. I can eat. This is great. With all of that stuff missing, imagine what it does to your relationships. And I don't just mean your wife or your husband, or you have relationships with your kids, brothers, sisters, friends, your boss. You're completely different. Anyone you know is basically in that relationship bracket. So you put it all together and start to see that you're destroying the relationships you had. You may not be even the same person you were when you got married. You may have changed to such a degree that the person you married may not have picked you to marry you at all. So all of a sudden things start to become very different. And these are just knock-on effects from all of those other changes. You destroy your relationships in some cases. And people don't understand what you have. They can't handle it. Anyone that doesn't have a brain injury don't want to talk about it. When I got in touch with Headway a little over a year ago, I was put on the CFT program, and the first thing that impacted on me was the sympathy I had for everybody else on the call. I had none for myself, nothing. And you start to see the similarities that other people are going through. Everybody's kind of coming across some or all of those changes, and they're trying to cope with them the best way they could. And the CFT program, I have to say, was a terrific help for me to start to identify what the changes were, and then try to work on finding a new way to look at things, finding a new way to think, reroute, remap your brain, whatever you have to do. Once I had awareness of it, and the first thing was I had to accept it. Up to that, I thought it was grand. Once I had accepted it, I had to deal with what the changes had created. Anxiety, lack of awareness, lack of confidence, tension, self-worth down the drain. Self-criticism was huge. Everything I did, I was criticising myself for. Isolation and loneliness. You put all of that stuff together and it's a pretty dark place to sort of get yourself back out of. It's not your fault. Not any of our faults. None of us asked for this. So what do you do when you sort of suddenly realise, and it took me 4.5 years to get there. Sort of bear in mind when I came out of hospital that all of a sudden we have all this information about brain injuries and they tell you 2 years and you will have got back whatever you're going to get. It took me 4.5 years and I'm still working on it. So identifying the changes and then having to live with them and cope with them gets complicated. And Headway was a big help in trying to sort of work my way through those and identify them and start working through them.
I think that's one of the things that seems to kind of underlie everybody that comes, anyone I've been in contact with anyway, it's always down to their confidence once they come out. And it's like, I don't know, for me, I suppose it was throw blinkers on and I'm going to get this and done and then it'll all be normal again. And then trying to just slowly but surely been like, this actually isn't normal and I'm not okay. And they were kind of the two main things was, I'm not okay. Yeah. And this isn't normal, but I'm going to have to learn how to adapt and adjust to it. And it can be, but I think this is, and I know I was talking to Shane about this, and pretty much most people, COVID, everybody was in a boat of similar sorts. But like for so many different reasons, brain injury, illness, bereavements, whatever, people were hanging off on different dinghies. But that whole, we all have to establish our new norm, it frustrated me so much because it made me feel more lost at the time because I thought I was literally just getting back to work, things kind of gradual return. And that was it. It was like what I pictured, a gradual return to reality. And all of a sudden it was just, well, nobody, like we're all going on about how there is no reality now and nobody knows what's going on. But it was very difficult to then kind of, but that, in fairness, it forced me to actually stop and go, I'm not okay. Yeah. Because I knew I was like, this is becoming unmanageable now. And I don't know how to, I can't wing it anymore because I can't go out and do all the things because nobody can do them. And
the way I see it, that's the first step.
Yeah.
It's like until you get to that point, you don't think anything needs to change. It's only when you get to that point you realise, I need help.
Yeah. And you had to get to that stage though where you're open, where you can willingly and openly ask for help and receive
when
it.
I say Headway helped me with the CFT programme, after the CFT programme, the 5 of the group, there was 8 of us on the CFT programme, 5 of us still meet for coffee. And it's like, literally now, it's like 5 old friends just turning up for a chat and a cup of coffee. It's great to see them, it's great to see the progress. We catch up on what we've been doing and it's like 5 old friends.
I'm really glad you mentioned all those kind of negative emotions, Peter, because it's something that I would have experienced and it's very easy to get into that kind of negativity and it's hard to pull. I remember the first day we went back, I'm involved in an art group with Headway and I love it, but it got me out of the house and into town and it was a little bit too early for me, but I managed it and it was just great. So recalibrated my head. It was nice chat, you get the tea and the coffee, it's not too long, we're doing something I absolutely love and it just put me back on track again because I think Christmas was a little bit too long and the, I suppose, washing machine of that cycle of negativity was starting to encroach again. And just that day out, just that one day out for those 2 hours, because you're embraced in a very safe place. Everyone is kind, everyone wants the best for you. And you know that walking in that door. And it's such a comfort. And you come out 2 hours later feeling completely different.
Brand new.
Yeah. I think what you were saying there about the 2 years thing, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to pretend to know, other than I think it kind of, it's like, say, the Leaving Cert, what we were saying, like the set curriculum just does not suit everybody. And I think it's probably the same. I mean, for 2 years, I was absolutely achieving A, B, C, and D, but at the expense of all the rest of the alphabet, like. And it's kind of like, once you kind of got over a certain barrier, there is more things to go. But definitely, for me anyway, the 2 years was like just a non-runner, because there's nothing tangible that I can measure it against anyway. Yeah. But certainly once, I suppose, when you just think about everything that the brain does, like from a creativity point of view, you may well, that might be 5 years down the line, it could be 10 years, whatever. It's just a case of just, and particularly I know my mood was at a very, very low at 2 years. And if I had taken that, if I hadn't heard somebody saying, no, this 2 year malark, just, you don't have to buy into it. I think I would have given up completely. I think at that stage I was so low that if I had thought in my head, this is it, like this is all, then I would not have managed at all. Like, I suppose it just took that case for me to just go, I'm not okay. But I do think it can be very, if there's so much that you can't do anyway because of how acute your injury is at the time, and then to think in your head, and I don't know about you, but I had 2 years to the date kind of on a countdown on my phone, like knowing when this 2 years was going to be up and how long I had left to try and improve this, like, and it, because I suppose it was, and I used it
pressure.
I used it as a motivation, I suppose, in many ways, in terms of me, I have to get all this bit sorted. So I did, like, it served a function for me. And I think I look at everything like that, like everything served a purpose at a time to get me to this stage, to get me onto that stage. And like you were saying, Peter, like to get you to the point where, like, I can say, oh, well, I accepted it way too late. Maybe I didn't accept it, so that I could get so far, and then I had to accept it.
And it could also be that maybe you weren't ready to accept it until you did. And it's only when you do then.
It's when you're ready. When you're ready for anything.
It's different for everybody. And where the CFT involvement with Headway was 4.5 years after my accident. If I had made contact 2 years or 3 years before,
you wouldn't have been ready.
I wouldn't have been ready. I'm not sure it would have had the same effect. I'm not sure it would have worked. Maybe it would, but it really did help me when I got in touch. And again, like you, I was ready at that point. I had realized at that point I needed help. You don't know what you need help with, but help.
I do think though that like certain things did serve a purpose for me. Otherwise, I'm going to just be regretting certain things. But I know that it did serve a function for me anyway. It was motivation to get certain things done. And yes, it's unfortunate that I didn't tackle certain elements earlier on in the game. But like, I am where I am anyway, and
we all are
a bit longer.
And I mean, another way of looking at that is we are, 4 of us sitting around the table here today, are living proof that you can recover from a brain injury.
I think one of the, I speak a lot about, say, maybe the washing machine of negative, that cycle of negative emotions. But I think one of the things it requires of us is a huge amount of bravery. And I would never have, maybe in the past, I'd always make sure I knew where to step my foot. I knew what, say, maybe the climate was like, the temperature was like before I stepped into an environment. Whereas now you're starting to go out and tackle new things and be brave and just kind of suck it up. And so far, everything that I've done with Headway has never come back in a negative fashion. I've always felt safe. I've always felt nurtured. I like the teas and the coffees. It's just it's given me strength, I suppose, to challenge things outside Headway environment. One of the things I did was, a French course, and it was great because I did it with my husband, and it was like a date night, and I wouldn't have done that. We talk about doing it, but Rachel set it up for me, and it was one of those amazing things that I'm sitting there, nobody knew anything about me or my background, and it was as good as or as bad as anyone else, So anyway, it requires an element of bravery as well to put yourself out there.
It does. And the bravery comes from the return of confidence. Each step along the way, your confidence is getting a little bit higher, and with the confidence comes, maybe I'll have a look at something different.
The priorities change. Like you have to acknowledge the fact that was a challenge for you. But it kind of, I suppose for me anyway, I kind of focus myself as best I can anyway in the evenings to focus on gratitude. And a lot of the time it's realising, having written down like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, stuff that I would have done that I found really, really difficult. And now we're just kind of part of standard day, and realising that actually I should be really grateful for that standard day, because 2 years ago I found it really difficult, or there was certain things that challenged me that I don't notice anymore because I found my ways around them to kind of just adapt to them. But I think we probably, it makes you reflect back and realise, okay, there's loads that I have to be grateful for right now. Yes, this might not be great right now, but I have all of this. And I found it really helpful anyway, just every evening. Just tiny little things. Sometimes it's just that you got up and you got out. Do you know?
And that's the strength of being part of the CFT program is discovering or learning about self-compassion. It's not a weakness. It's a strength. And the strength is kind of coming from outside, apart from the compassion you might have for yourself, but just being grateful for getting through the day, or getting through it relatively so easily.
Yeah.
Where 2 years ago, that would have been a completely different picture.
We sleep on the couch.
So, I mean, height of respect for going back to school, working your way through it, and doing umpteen degrees, all with a brain injury. Fair play to you. It's major achievement.
Every day's a school day these days.
And now you have it.
But it's funny, like the last challenge for me after Brady was actually getting a job, because when I finished my degree, I was like, crap, I'm in my late 20s and I've never had a job. And I was like super anxious about it. And I was like, all those steps, like if I work of retail, like would I be able to give the person change, the right change, and all these little things, and or would I bump into someone on my right side because I can't see on my right side, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, can I do something? And then I was like, tell them, I'll get a job. In the back of my head, I was like, will I be able to manage a job? And I was actually finally going to my doctor about a few years ago, and he said, go to Employability. They're another organisation for helping people with disabilities to get jobs. And they introduced me to the CE scheme, which is like, you just get an extra 30 on your dole, or disability allowances. It's nothing major, but it's basically, it's like you do like 90.5 hours a week, and it's just like a stepping stone. So I'm doing that at the moment, and it's like, it completely took, like, I was even thinking about these last few weeks, maybe getting a proper job now, and like, I would never have thought of work, because I have the confidence now, and like, I'm working with youth, I'm working with adolescents in town. And I just love it. And like, I love working. I'm able to keep up with it. I'm able to work with the kids. The kids are appreciating. They love working with me. And it's like the confidence, as you were saying, like loving yourself and being appreciative and looking what you've achieved. And like, it's that was the last kind of jigsaw for me after my brain injury was 17.5 years ago. And I'm still kind of finally, I think that last piece for me, but like, it's like, it's always a process. Like, there's never should be a 2-year kind of
exactly.
You know,
and that's completely invaluable too. Like, a little bit extra onto your job. Massive.
But it's not about the money. It was just the confidence. It's just about the confidence. And actually, I can actually. But I can have a job. Like, it's further evidence that the recovery can take. As long as it takes. But it keeps going. Your brain is incredible. How it controls everything the way it was. You can have whatever it is that caused your brain injury, and then with help you can rebuild it and develop it and possibly improve it and keep going. But it keeps changing, it keeps developing,
it's exciting.
It is.
Just
it is.
reframe it. Keeps on your toes, and it's exciting.
So my mum said, like, if I hadn't got my brain injury, I may have not done the PLC course where I met my wife in 2012, and now I've been married to her for 4 years. So like, everything is for a reason, you know. So like, I always feel like your path is kind of set out for you, so you kind of just have to, just go with it, you know, and just enjoy every moment. That's what I say.
And it's, I suppose it's again about not having the answers. And I'm a nurse, and it was very difficult for me to actually be a patient. You know, and it's very, very difficult for me to accept help, and because I thought I'd figure it all out and I knew it all, and I didn't know it all, and it was just a revelation that you can actually put yourself into a passive position, and get so much from it, get so much protection and self-esteem and support. And it was a real revelation that, the right help, if you get the right help, you can flourish.
Welcome back.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It is just allowed my background is social work, so I would know this before the opposite end of it, or the opposite side of the table, I suppose. And it's very difficult because you're like, I know all this. Why can't I just give it to myself? Because I very genuinely know that I will be looking at me across the table right now, having so much compassion and a huge amount of you can do this, you're fine. And then but I think I always just stick with we're all doing the best that we can at any time with what we have.
And then not having compassion for yourself to the same extent as you might have compassion for somebody else going through the same thing, kind of holds you back a little bit, and that's where the strength comes from.
It's confusing though as well.
It is.
You just can't.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be, but that's where the strength comes from, because it's each little step of that builds your confidence again, and it brings you back to where you were. Yeah. Certainly from my point of view. Thank you, Headway.
Cheers.
Without the help, I'd still be where I was.
As we wrap up today's discussion, let's hear some final advice from our guests.
Yeah, I'd say just take the help that's out there, that's the supports that are there, like Headway, or if you're in school, there's any help you can get. I felt it very beneficial, with college and all, and just getting a few help. And no one's gonna look at you like you have 3 legs if you have an extra 10 minutes in an exam or whatever. Just go for it. And if you're in secondary school and you're struggling, don't worry too much. Just do the best you can. That's what I always say to myself every day now. I say, do the best you can, and if you don't do the best in the Leaving Cert is not the end of the world. No matter how many teachers tell you it's the end of the world, it isn't, just because college is a completely new page. So
I'd agree, and thanks for all the insights from everyone. I suppose just in terms of me, with advice in relation to focus and concentration, it would be primarily just on, you'll know what you need to know at any given time, and after that, just don't be panicking and don't overthink and overanalyze yourself and how you present it. I couldn't get out earlier, it's the people who matter won't mind, and the people who mind don't matter. And I suppose just to try and stick with that. And it's okay to just say, I'm really sorry I forgot, or what were we talking about, or say it again, and or run me by that again, or run me through it. And just little things, sometimes if you notice it, people are saying it every day of the week, it's just part of speech. And I think when you just accept that part of it, because that was something I just would not say for so long, was just asking people to go over again and to say it again, or I might have forgotten that. But actually, if it just becomes part of just standards, then it's actually much easier. So so just do the best that you can, like Peter said, and the people in mind don't matter.
Anyone who's listening with a brain injury, or anyone who's listening who's caring for somebody with a brain injury, do yourself a favour. Ring Headway. You don't have to explain you have a brain injury. They know. They don't judge. They don't ask difficult questions. They help. That's what Headway does. That's all they do. Do yourself a favour and give them a call. We were talking about changes that each of us have identified and had to cope with, and then, as far as we could, had to try and fix. If you have any of those, Headway can help. That's my advice. It's you don't have to try and just muddle through and hope it'll all sort itself out. It won't. You don't know what you don't know, and you need help to find out. Do yourself a favour and ring Headway.
I would agree with all of that. I like that. I'm bringing it home with me today, that people that matter don't mind, and I'm going to cherish that. I suppose the thing that I learned in early days after the hemorrhage, I slept around the clock. I just couldn't stay awake, and again, it was about cutting my cloth instead of wanting to keep the standards the exact same way as they always were. I just started to learn to cut my cloth, ask for help, let the important things, focus on the important things, and the dusting and the house and all the rest of it, just let it slide. We'll get around to it another day. So now I do it in bite-sized pieces, and that's good enough for me for the moment, you know. And at one of the Headway barbecues there during the summer, I walked in, which took a lot of bravery because I didn't know anybody going in apart from the people I knew from the groups or whatever. And what I learned that day is that people at different phases, I was lucky. I was a little bit further along than, say, maybe other people, and that was good. That was good to know. And then I met a new friend, and she kept telling me, it takes time. Give yourself time. It's early days. And I think that's a message to us all, that every month you can improve, and just to focus on that. And it's early days. And cut your clothes, and people that matter don't mind.
And that brings us to the end of today's exploration into living with changes in your attention and concentration. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their experiences and strategies.
Absolutely. If you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We have more engaging topics lined up for future episodes.
And of course, we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts, questions, and experiences on our social media platforms.
Join us next week as we delve into the topic of living with changes in your planning and organising skills with new guests.
So, until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep exploring the many facets of life after brain injury with Headway.